بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد إخوة الإسلام عباد الله. I'm currently in the comfort of my own home, walillah alhamd, and to be more specific, within my library. And I have some new equipment that I wanted to test. And so I thought I would test this new equipment while attempting to satisfy the curiosity of some people. I know that there's some people that are curious when they see my videos. They're curious about the books that I'm usually giving my reminders in front of. And so I'm in my library now, and because I got such positive feedback as it relates to one of the impactful moments videos that I did where I showed some of the brothers and sisters some of the books, and I decided to satisfy some people who have curiosity as it relates to the books that are behind me. I decided to attempt to satisfy some of those curiosities. So we're in my library now, and we're going to take a look at some of the books that are on the shelf. And I'm going to turn the camera around, inshallah, so that the brothers can get a view of the library. And in reality, this library of mine is not, it's a humble library. It's a humble library. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for whatever books He's allowed me to accumulate since I've been back in the States. But for those that have been to real researchers' homes and you've seen their libraries, my library pales in comparison to their library. And so this is why I say this is in reality a real humble library. But again, all praise is due to Allah for whatever it is He has given me, because I try and benefit to the best of my ability from the books that I have with me. So these are all the books, all of my books that I keep panning to, and we'll get a closer look starting from my right and then going to the left. Now over here, this particular shelf, or this particular bookshelf in general, at least the first 4 shelves are dealing with Hadith. They're dealing with Hadith. And these are books that, without a doubt, for any researcher, anybody that does the slightest amount of research, that a person can't be without. Now, when we're looking at this particular book right here, which is 14, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 7 volumes, but as you can see, it's actually 14 volumes condensed into the 7 volumes. This is Awn al-Ma'bud, Sharh Sunan Abi Dawood. This is Awn al-Ma'bud, the explanation to the Sunan of Abu Dawood. Right? I'm just going to pull it out so the brothers and sisters can see the cover. And this is a classic work by Abadi. This is one of the works that, for people that want to have a clear understanding of the statements of the Prophet ﷺ from that which is found in the Sunan of Abu Dawood, then this is a must-have without a shadow of a doubt. Now, this particular book next to it is Tuhfatul Ahwadi, which is the explanation to the Jami' of Imam al-Tirmidhi. Right, and this is by one of the Mubarak Furis. Alright, this is on its side the Sharh to the Sunan of An-Nisa'i. This is Shuruhat to the Sunan of Ibn Majah. What's happening is there's a lot of different Shuruhat that's compiled into this. I'll pull out the cover, and as you can see on the cover, for those that read Arabic, these are the listed Shuruhat and who did the Sharh. So the one at the top, Misbah az-Zujaja bi Sharh Sunan Ibn Majah, right? That being the first Sharh. The second, Kifayat al-Haja fi Sharh Sunan Ibn Majah. Right, so they're compiling, this is by Cindy, they're compiling within the Sharh the statements, or those books actually. And so whenever one of those Imams actually gives some explanation to a narration, they'll have it listed in the Hashiyah. Alright. And then you have this book right here that I'm pointing to. In fact, for the sake of time, I won't necessarily point out every single book, but the ones that have several volumes, I'll just point those out. But since I already pointed, this is Al-Adab al-Mufrid by Imam al-Bukhari, and right next to it is the Muwatta of Imam Malik in one volume. This right here is Sahih al-Jami' al-Saghir wa-Ziyada by Sheikh al-Albani. This is 2 volumes, 1 and 2. And then this is the Da'if, alright? The Da'if, which lists the weak narrations therein. Then going to the shelf under that, you have some of the classic Sahih al-Bukhari. From here to there. Oh, excuse me. This is Fath al-Bari. Excuse me. The Sharh to Sahih al-Bukhari. But this Fath al-Bari is by Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. Very valuable. But unfortunately, Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali didn't complete a full explanation to the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari in its entirety. He only was able to do the first few books. This is Sahih Muslim. And then this is Imam al-Nawawi's Sharh to Sahih Muslim. This is very valuable for anybody that pays attention to things talks and things of this nature that I do. You'll often find me quoting from this book. This book is very valuable. For anybody that's a researcher, you have to have your hands on the Sharh of Sahih Muslim by Imam al-Nawawi. You can't do without it. And then these are some the Sunan of Abu Dawud, just the regular Matan in 1 volume, the Sunan of An-Nisa'i, the Musnad of Imam Ahmed in 2 volumes, they're just the Matan, and that's for so on. Under that, this big voluminous work, this is Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and likewise, it is a book you must have. It's a book for anybody that's into research and trying to understand the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. It is a must to have that work. It's tremendous in its benefit. Walillah alhamd. Going down, on that shelf there's some smaller shuruhat of certain books out of the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. But coming down to this particular shelf, we see the books in blue over here. This is the Silsila al-Ahadith al-Sahiha by Sheikh al-Albani, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. And this particular book is very valuable as well. And not only do you find within this book the explanations of the Sheikh as it relates to why the narrations were graded sound, but some of the ahadith even has some shuruhat to them. So there's extra benefit in that regard. So it's very valuable. So then we have some shuruhat to al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya, or the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. And then over here we have the Sharh of Al-Adab al-Mufrid by Sheikh Zayd. But below that, We have Siyar A'lam al-Nubala by Imam al-Dhahabi. And as you can see, that takes up the whole shelf, and then the remaining volumes are at the end over here on the shelf on top of it. So that's basically this particular bookshelf is the majority of its use is for Hadith. As we know, Siyar A'lam al-Nubala is a book of it's a history book in a sense, or it's the biographies of a lot of the Salaf, or a lot of the A'imma of the past. Moving on to this particular bookshelf, we have a lot of books on Aqeedah and Manhaj. A lot of books. This is mainly the books on Aqeedah and Manhaj, and you have some books down that way. You'll have some books of Tafsir, and that's forth and so on. So let's go back up for a second. I don't want to do as I did the first shelf and go through every single book, but there are some books that I just want to point out. Now, without a doubt, everybody's library you want to have the Sharh of Al-Aqeedah Al-Wasatiyya by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih Al-Uthaymin. This is what that is. And then this book right next to it is the Sharh to the same book by Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh. It's in 2 volumes, right? Volume 1, Volume 2. This is very beneficial. This is very, very beneficial. In fact, the books of Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh are tremendous as it relates to its benefits. And as you can see, this book right here, it says Shuruhat, which means explanations, right? And this is the Shuruhat of Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh to several books that were originally written by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab at-Tamimi and-Najdi. Specifically, Al-Qawa'id Al-Arba'a, and then we see Thalathatul Usul and Kashf al-Shubuhat. Alright? And all of that in one particular volume. Looks like I'm having a hard time getting that back in there. I think there's a book caught on back of me, but because I'm using one hand, I can't really maneuver to grab it. I'll just leave it like this for 1 second. Then as we pan down, this is another one, Sharh Usul I'tiqad Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah by Al-Imam Al-Lalaka'i. And this is in 2 volumes, but this is very valuable as well, especially as it pertains to research. And then a book right on the side of it, Ma'arij al-Qubul, very beneficial as well, mashallah. Then there are other works. We'll skim down. I'anat al-Mustafi bi Sharh Kitab al-Tawheed by Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan. So a lot of these works are from the contemporary scholars of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. The Fatul Majid, which is the Sharh to Kitab al-Tawheed. And then again, this is Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh's Sharh to Kitab al-Tawheed. Very beneficial. Very beneficial. And then we have Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih Al-Uthaymin Sharh al-Qawl al-Mufid al-Kitab al-Tawheed. And this is very beneficial as well. And like I said, there are other books up there. Coming down one shelf, we have other books. A lot of them are from contemporary scholars. But I want to point out one beneficial book. I'm just going to put it. It looks like it's having, okay, it looks like it's focusing just fine now. This is Ibta' al-Ta'wilat li Akhbar al-Sifat. And this is by Abu Ya'la. This is by Abu Ya'la al-Imam, yani Abu Ya'la. And this particular work is very beneficial. In fact, I just recently obtained this book. When I say recent, within this year. And after I purchased it, it was definitely one of the books that I was focused on reading. Like I said, I'm using one hand, so I'm having a hard time putting those books back because I'm only using one hand. But here it is. We have Kitab al-Arsh, 2 volumes by Imam al-Dhahabi. Mukhtasar al-Ulu by Imam al-Dhahabi as well. The Sharh to al-Aqeedah al-Tahawiyya, and that is the Sharh is by Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh. Now I've just recently got this book as well, and I'll be honest, I haven't really been able to go into it as of yet because of me being focused on other things. But this book right here at the end, this is Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen's Sharh to al-Aqeedah as-Safariniyya. For brothers, get your hand. If you don't have this in your library, get this book. Get this book. For the brothers that are into research, get your hands on this book. This book is filled with, all of them are filled with fawaid in reality, but this, mashallah, this book is filled with some very, very beneficial points by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen as it relates to affairs of Aqeedah and thus forth and so on. And then so I'm going to skip down a little bit. We have some Talbis Iblis and some other books that are specific to Manhaj, Madarij al-Salikin by Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya. And we have some Ash-Sharia and some other works up here. Al-I'tisam by Al-Imam al-Shatibi. Ad-Dawah, that's also up there. So there's a couple of different mu'allafat from A'imma and some from contemporary scholars. But coming down this way, this is more or less Tafsir, and you can see that my Tafsir section is really miskeen. It's really miskeen. It really only consists of the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, which is a tremendous work, mashallah. Likewise, the Tafsir of Sheikh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasr al-Sa'adi, and the Tafsir of Imam al-Shawkani, Fathul Qadir. Then you have some mu'allafat from Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen for certain chapters within the Quran. But for the most part, the Tafsir books that I go back to are really those 3: Fathul Qadir, Tafsir ibn Kathir, and then the Tafsir of Abdul Rahman ibn Nasr al-Sa'di, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhim jami'an. And then on the end right here is the Sharh to Riyadh al-Salihin by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih, and it's 4 volumes, and the work is tremendous, mashallah. That particular work is tremendous. That's another work as it relates to understanding of those ahadith that are contained therein, where Sheikh Uthaymeen, mashallah, he really does a good job expounding on the intent of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ in that regard. And in reality, for a person that's into trying to do research, your library is probably going to be filled with books from Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen. His contribution was tremendous, mashallah. Then you have some books over here, some in Hadith and dealing with the companions, and then right here, Al-Kitab, this is by Sibawayh, some dealing with Arabic. And the books back then didn't consist of one aspect of Arabic, like it's not just a Nahu book, but it has Nahu in it and Sarf and thus forth and so on. And it's incumbent for a brother like myself that mainly speaks English night and day since I've been back in the States to review the books on Arabic from Sarf and Nahu and other than that. And there's other books down there. Qatr al-Nada, the explanation to Qatr al-Nada is down there, right next to al-Kitab, Kitab al-Sibawayh. And there are other works. There are other works on varying different issues. You find the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ here, and once you start to go over this way, more or less on either the lives of the companions, or like this particular book right here, the all black 4-volume book, Tahdhib al-Tahdhib by al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and it's one of the books of Rijal, and thus forth and so on. So in that regard, when it comes to ilm al-hadith, it could be more replete as well. But anyway, now we're going to the fiqh, the books that are mainly dealing with fiqh. Now at the top, there are some contemporary works on specific issues. When we go this way, we have Sheikh Al-Albani's 3-volume Sifat Salat al-Nabi. Then we have right next to that Ar-Rad al-Mufham, which was the silence and refutation. This is Sheikh Al-Albani's work concerning the woman's face, if it's an awra or not. Then you have next to that Jilbab al-Mar'a al-Muslima, which is also by Sheikh Al-Albani, and a couple of other books going down that are by Sheikh Al-Albani. Some books up to here. This is Tamam al-Minna, that was done by Sheikh Al-Albani. Then you have other books that are by authored by scholars that are more or less, I don't want to say they're like summarized fiqh books, for lack of better expressions, meaning a mas'ala is brought up, the position is stated, and then the evidence for the position. A lot of those books are, some of these books are like that, or the book may be on a particularized subject. But once we come down a little bit and stop right here and go to these books, then we're mainly dealing with either books on usul fiqh or al-qawa'id al-fiqhiyya. And it's these books that, as it relates to the fiqh section, that I constantly stay in. Now I'm gonna pull 2 books that, when it comes to these subjects, I constantly refer back to. Now this particular book right here, the first one, this is al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya al-Kubra, and this is by Salih al-Sadlan. And this is one of the books, I'm going to say it like this: I don't know of a more replete book on al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya than this. I haven't seen one more replete. And the way that Sheikh Sadlan, rahimahullah, laid everything out in this book is a must-have for the researcher. It is a must-have for the researcher, because he brings the 5 major principles, as the title states. Al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya al-Kubra is dealing with the major principles, the major fiqh principles, right? And so there are 5, so he brings those 5, but the way that he has the book laid out, he'll bring, like for instance, al-mashaqqa tajlibu at-taysir. So he'll bring that major principle, and he'll have he'll explain that particular principle, but then thereafter he'll bring the principles. You have chapters after that of the principles that actually are I don't want to that spring forth from that particular principle. All right, so he'll he does that, and he just like he explains thoroughly the major principle, Then he explains the meanings of the other principles that basically are subsidiary or principles that are basically related and or derived from that major principle. And this is a must-have. This is a must-have. I have other books on al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya up here, but I haven't seen one. And I'm saying me, I haven't done a whole lot of delving into works of this nature. So me saying that, I'm saying that I'm making a statement and shouldn't be taken that like in a sense of, wow, Najeeb said he couldn't find my searching is limited. So I'm saying that off the bat. So this book I depend on in that regard due to the fact that I haven't seen one more replete as it relates to al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya, bringing out these major principles and then the principles that are derived therefrom. And this other book I just pulled from the shelf is the Sharh to al-Usul min ilm al-Usul. And this is a book on usul al-fiqh by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. And the Sharh was done by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. And I constantly go back to this book to review and refresh, because it was this book on usul al-fiqh that I studied while I was in Damaj. Actually, I studied the Matan. But when I review certain aspects of usul al-fiqh, I don't go back to the Matan. I just come back to this book. And I've had this book for quite some time now. And it's like I said, I find myself when it comes to usul al-fiqh referencing this quite often. It may be because I'm familiar with the book. Maybe that's why I go back to it quite often. But when I'm doing my review and pulling, like say for instance, if I give a talk or whenever you see me pulling examples or speaking on my understanding of a particular issue as it relates to usul al-fiqh, it's usually coming from this book. Now, I have another book by Muhammad al-Amin al-Shinkiti al-Mudhakkira, which is also a book on usul al-fiqh. It's also a book on usul al-fiqh, and it's more, it was a book that was studied in Damaj, usually after this book was studied, al-Usul min ilm al-Usul. Now, I didn't get a chance to study this book while I was in Damaj. Since I've had this book, I've read certain chapters and thus forth and so on, but not in real detail. It's Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin's book that I depend on more so. And then, like I said, al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya al-Kubra, then this book is dependent upon. Although I have other books on my shelf concerning al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya. Like, for instance, if I was to pull this out, this is Sheikh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'adi, and for the students, this book is well known. Al-Qawa'id wal-Usul al-Jami'ah. This is well known to the students that studied overseas. You can find this in Egypt, Yemen, Saudi, wherever you're at. This book is accessible. Walillah alhamd. So at any rate, that is. So now we're going to the next shelf, and this is when we start going into actual books of fiqh. Alright? And this 5-volume work is Sharh al-Umda by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. But right before that is by Imam al-Shafi'i. Alright? And then you have Subul al-Salam, and then which is the Sharh to Bulugh al-Maram, and then you have 2 copies of Bulugh al-Maram here. This one has a ta'liqat to some of the contemporary scholars, to some of the narrations that are therein. And then this voluminous work right here, the 6-volume work, is the explanation to Bulugh al-Maram by Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. It's like I said, it'll be real tough to have your library free from the works of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin. All of this shows his tremendous contributions in that regard as it relates to knowledge and thus forth and so on. Going down one shelf just to try and get this out the way as soon as possible. We have Al-Mughni, 8 volumes. Then we have Nail al-Awtar. It's condensed into five volumes, but it looks like it was actually 9 parts. And then we have at the end over here Al-Muhalla by Ibn Hazm. Al-Muhalla by Ibn Hazm. And I remember when I first got that book when I was overseas. I don't recall if I had this copy overseas. When I came back home, I had to leave the library that I had when I was in Yemen. I had to leave it there. The point is, though, that book, I remember when I first started looking into this particular book, I found it to be very, very beneficial, mashallah. Ibn Hazm, some of the way his argumentations were, they were very simple. And one of the things that you find him stating or quoting when establishing a fiqh principle, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا. He would quote this statement of Allah in Surah Maryam quite often, and your Lord was not forgetful, in order to respond to, another position. And I found that way that he was doing this just very simple. It was very simple and very convincing, and some of the babs of fiqh. Then we go down, and we go down and we have more books of fiqh. Al-Istidqar by Ibn Abdul Barr. And then we have some other works. Kitab al-Af'al over here by Ibn al-Arabi, and that's a recent book as well, by the Maliki scholar Ibn al-Arabi. And this is, I just recently got this book too, and I actually took this to work with me one time and was going through it. I found it to be a very beneficial book, mashallah. A very beneficial work. So that's about the gist as it relates to fiqh, and these are kind of like miscellaneous books, not necessarily on fiqh, but on a lot of different other issues, some fiqh, some other than that. And then this last shelf, we have a mixture, and then I actually have a book that I just bought in this particular box. It really hasn't been unboxed yet. But anyway, this is a tremendous work. Jami' Turath al-Allama al-Albani fil fiqh. And as you can see, that's 18 volumes, mashallah. And it's tremendous. It's tremendous. It's just his works on varying aspects of fiqh gathered into one book. Then when we go under that, on this shelf, and remove my taqiyah, we have Jami' Turath al-Allama al-Albani fil Manhaj wal Ahdath al-Kubra. Now it's in less volumes than the other book. This one is about 12 volumes. And I've been in that book more so than I've been in his fiqh book. Right? I've definitely been in that more than I've been in his fiqh book. Mashallah. And it's tremendous. This book right here, I have it broken up on different shelves because by the time I set it on the shelf, I just ran out of room. But this is Liqa'at al-Bab al-Maftuh, and this is the gathered fatwa of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen on various issues. This right here, this 4 volume, it's a compiled writings of Sheikh Tuwajiri, Hamoud at-Tuwajiri, rahimahullah, in 4 volumes. And some of the books in there are some very good reading. I got a chance to get some good reading in on some of the works that I found therein. And of course, you have the Majmu' Fatawa of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. And this is a must-have as well as it relates to Fatawa. And then after that, in this section, in this part of the bookshelf, I have some softback books here, and then I have some books that are binded here. And as you can see, these are my notes. These are notes that I was able to take from overseas when I came back home from overseas, and some of the notebooks are new after I've been back. And a lot of masail that I review, instead of going back to books, I just go back to the notes, because some of these were notes that were taken when I was in classes. Then I had to buy a second daftar or a second folder and place those notes in these folders, arrange them in a way that I could go back. And so when you see a paper like this, for instance, this little paper has been with me for a long time, and this was a part of notes that were that was taken. And some of the other papers, same thing, notes that were taken. Some fell out of the folders. Some notes were done, were placed in folders, and like I said, may have fell out. This is something I was doing some research, and thus forth and so on. So I've tried to hold on to all of that as much as possible, because that makes it easy for review. It makes it real easy for review. And so at any rate, that is my library in a nutshell. Like I said, it's a humble library, but I am definitely appreciative and thankful to that which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala bestows upon me, because without a shadow of a doubt, if I didn't have what I do have, then it would be a whole lot more difficult to present what I present to the brothers and sisters concerning whatever subject that I deal with, and Allah knows best. So at any rate, I won't take up too much time on this. I think that's sufficient in satisfying the curiosity of brothers who ask and inquire about, what are those books that are, some of those books that are on back of me when I'm usually giving a talk or whatever. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.